Hey out there, and welcome to today's Search Engine Journal webinar. Hope you're having a great day, and we're thrilled to have you here with us. I am joined by Amelia Northrop Simpson of CallRail. Today, we're going to be talking about small business marketing and how you can safely try new strategies. As we look ahead to a coming recession, many small businesses are wondering how they're going to compete with bigger brands with even bigger marketing budgets, sorry. So entrepreneurs and smaller teams don't have the bandwidth and budget to test as much as they'd like, and taking risks can leave you feeling overwhelmed. So Amelia is going to share how taking calculated risks doesn't have to be scary. And so first, before we get too far into this, my name is Heather Campbell, and I'm going to be your moderator today. Next, use the hashtag SEJ webinars to share any cool tidbits from today's learning on social. And let's meet our guest. So Amelia, excited to have you here with us again. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Heather.
Yeah, we're going to turn it over to Amelia here in just a second, but I'm just going to go through some quick housekeeping tips. So for all of our attendees out there, if you experience any technical difficulties, please use the chat box to let us know. There are separate tabs for questions and chat, so just take a second to get familiar with those functions. They're in the top right of your screen. And if you see questions that you like, you can upvote them, which tells us it's something that, more people are interested in. So, and we'll answer as many of them as we can at the end of the presentation. There is also closed captioning that's in the top right of your screen as well. If you push that button, that closed captioning will come on the bottom for you. And so we'll do our best to link to any resources or tools in the chat, but if we miss one, just ask, and resources will be included in the recap email that you will receive later today. After the webinar, we do ask if you can stick around for a really short survey. It takes 2 minutes or less, and this information really just helps us gauge what works and how we can make SEJ webinars more useful for you. And lastly, it's the question that we get asked the most. You will absolutely receive the full recording of today's webinar later today. Watch your inbox for that. Hashtag SEJ webinars. That's enough for me. I'm going to turn it over to Amelia. Here we go.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Heather. I am just so thrilled to be here to chat about one of my personal favorite topics, which is risk. But before we dive in, I will introduce myself. I'm Amelia Northrop Simpson. I'm the product marketing manager at CallRail. And I have really worked in marketing for a variety of small businesses in my career, all the way from a boutique creative firm to a niche CRM system to even a small theater company. So I've kind of run the gamut. I've been a department of one in a department of 40, as well as just like one of 2 employees. So when I say small business, like I've been in a pretty small business. But the reason that I love to talk about risk is that it's an area that we all feel a lot of emotions around. We kind of think of ourselves as having a professional self and then an emotional self or an emotional side of us. And when we talk about risk, it sort of bridges that gap and a lot of feelings become involved, and it just feels like really juicy. Now, I'm also a data geek, and it's an area where good data can really help us feel safe again. And that's what we're here to talk about today, right? So how to safely try new strategies. So I want to start with a quote. You might have seen this one, hanging around the internet, but really, truly, take a moment here to think about this. What does this look like in your life? When you're doing things on a daily basis, maybe on a weekly basis, how much time are you spending sort of avoiding uncomfortable things? And what would you do if you knew that it was all going to turn out okay? So I'm going to kick off the webinar here by talking about this, because talking about things makes them feel less scary. So let's celebrate success in confronting our fears. So right here, right now in the chat, what is the last thing that you did that felt a little scary to you? This could be in your personal or your professional life. Just type it there in the chat and Heather will read some of them out. So
I think this is a great question. It really kind of gives people kind of like setting the base for this, So I'm excited to see some of these answers. I'm trying to
Yeah.
think what was the last thing that I did that felt really scary. I mean, God.
Well, I'm happy to go first. So yesterday I was going to run a sales training, and at the last minute, it was supposed to be me, a marketing person, and a salesperson. And the salesperson got COVID, couldn't do the training anymore. So I had to just pivot last minute. I brought my personas. It all turned out great, but it was a scary moment because I'm not a salesperson.
That's awesome. We've got some answers coming in. So somebody said SEO. So what was the last thing that felt scary? They were doing SEO.
You're in the right place.
Anna said she changed work. So changing jobs can always very definitely, give you that sense of anxiety. Emmy says promoting herself. Giselle says that she moved from Florida to Arizona without having a job 17 years ago. That's got to be a great story. Paid ads, Pamela says paid ads. Paulo says called companies based on their products with consumer experience and ideas to help their digital presence. So maybe some like cold calling sounds like. So yeah, I think we've got some. Ian says he started his own business. So I think we've got some great answers here, Amelia.
I love those. All right. Next question. Now, thinking about the future with your business, what's one thing that you're considering doing that feels scary? And if you're an agency, it can be something for your own business, like your firm, your agency, or for the clients that you serve. So go ahead, type that in the chat, and you can be as vague as you want here. If you're worried, you can say like trying a new channel instead of we're getting on TikTok, or we're layering in some automation, and that feels a little scary.
Mm-hmm. So Miro says starting a B&B business. Caroline says starting a podcast for our company. Sure. We have a podcast that we've done, we've started and stopped it a couple times, and it takes a while to get steam. So just keep running with it, Caroline, is what I would tell you. Yeah, getting on new social platforms, not getting the best results from their marketing company.
Talk about that. Yep. I think we're going to talk about getting on new social platforms a lot today, Heather.
Starting to do webinars independently. Yeah, all of this is great. Oh, hiring your first employee. So congratulations on that. That's definitely something that feels scary and liberating all at the same time.
That's
being
awesome.
Mindful of a small marketing budget.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I feel that one. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Oh, bed and breakfast, she says. Mm-hmm. All right, awesome. So lots of great examples there of experiments that you're considering. Love those answers. At CallRail, we work with a lot of SMBs and a lot of marketers, helping them market with confidence through form tracking, call tracking, conversation intelligence, and lead intelligence. And we were curious, how are marketing people experimenting with new strategies? Do they feel that their efforts are worth it? And how can a new strategy that may feel a little bit risky be made to feel less scary? Because the unknown is scary, right? So let's learn more, see if we can help those businesses market with confidence. And so what we did is we asked 601 US-based marketers. You can see on this slide kind of a variety of job titles within that response space, and also a variety of revenues. Usually small business is defined as under 500 employees. The ones that I have worked for have been way under 500 employees. But in terms of revenue, it kind of ran the gamut. Now, if you want to cheat and download the full report that we made on this, I think that Christina or Heather, one of the two, is going to share that link now. You can go ahead and download that, follow along with me, share with your colleagues, use it to prove things to your boss. And that link is being shared now. Thank you, Christina. You will also have another opportunity to download it at the end of our presentation. But what's in this report? What are we talking about today? First, if you are looking for evidence to take to your leadership that small businesses do innovate and experiment, you are in luck today. We have all the data that you will need. Second of all, is it worth it? Do marketers feel that the ROI is there? Are brave experimenting marketers say yes? Thirdly, the cost of inaction. So translating this existential dread that we all might be feeling into amazing marketing. Fourth, many times the question of safely trying something comes up in the context of new channels. So let's take a deep dive into how our experimenting marketers are thinking about that. And lastly, how tracking and data can mitigate risk. Kind of focused in on the question of it worked, right? Something that we have all felt as marketers or directly gotten the question. So how to arm ourselves against that question. Okay, diving in. So marketers at small businesses have proved that they are as bold and brave as any marketer, and they are using the resources that they have at their disposal to experiment. Many of them, almost all of them, have tested a new marketing channel or an emerging trend, and they have done so recently. So again, if you're looking to take proof to leadership at your organization, or just looking to fortify yourself with the bravery to experiment, here you go. Others are doing it, other businesses like yours. Now, we said that 91% were trying a new channel. On social media specifically, how did that break down? Let's take a look. So you can see here, folks going to TikTok, expanding into Facebook for the first time, etc. So we found as we were examining this data that social media in particular was seen as an opportunity when experimenting. And I think this makes a lot of sense, right? Small to medium-sized businesses do have smaller budgets and resources than large brands, but they do have more agility as well, right? And we know that social media can reward those that are reacting quickly to trends and are putting forth footage that might be a little bit more raw and authentic than the polished ones of those bigger brands. So you can see here that our brave experimenting marketers did feel like social media channels were among the best and most cost-effective places for their business to experiment with new campaigns. So a lot of marketers, a lot of marketers were trying a new channel in our survey. They also did other experiments. Before we go there, I actually want to hear from you all how you all stack up. So thinking about the future with your business before the end of the year, which of these are you considering?
So I kicked that off. That should pop up for most of you. If it didn't for some reason, you can go under the polls tab and you can answer in there.
Yeah, and just select all that apply. If you are an agency, you can think about, if you're an account manager, one client in your book of business or any company-wide strategic things that you are considering.
So far, the leader, actually, we're tied now between trying a new channel and launching a new ad campaign.
Oh, I love it. Well, trying a new channel, as you saw before, was definitely up there. Do we want to call it closed yet?
Yep, I think so. I think they're all in, and those are the two winners.
Okay, trying a new channel. And what was the other one?
Trying a new channel and launching a new ad campaign.
Love that. Great. Well, aside from trying a new channel, which we already know was high, this is what our marketers said. So this is pretty fascinating because new tagline was one of the more popular ones. Launching a new ad campaign was kind of middle of the pack. And then, yeah, trying a new offer is also higher in this group than it was in the survey. So fascinating stuff. All right, moving on. Was it worth it? Is the ROI there? Our brave experimenting marketers said yes. So let's dive on in here. So marketers at small to medium-sized businesses are going in on staying cutting edge. You can see a whopping 98% of marketers agreed that testing new channels was worth it. Experimental campaigns, 86%. So overwhelmingly, these marketers are saying it's worth it. And it is working. It is resulting in an increase in customers. 96% of folks said that. And also increase in followers. 86% of our marketers said that. It's also worth it from a revenue perspective when we look specifically at channels. So what this chart is showing you is that our marketers were estimating the ROI of investing in new channels, and it's in the hundreds of thousands to over $1 million in revenue. So you can see YouTube and television have delivered the strongest, and then some various social media platforms cascading thereafter. Now, why does this matter now? You know, this is a moment of uncertainty. Heather referenced it at the beginning of the presentation. Really weighing risk versus reward right now matters more than ever. So this is a long post from someone I follow on LinkedIn called Daniel Priestley, who I would highly recommend following right now. He is doing a great job sort of threading the needle between reality and hope, which is like kind of the take that I need. But bottom line from this, recessions are a hard time, right? And it is also a time to become focused on what is working, whether that is old or new. And you don't actually know what is working until you try and measure. Because what's the alternative? Not experimenting. Now, if you are really into pop psychology like I am, you know that our brains are wired to ask this question of what if things go wrong? There's a fear center of our brain called the amygdala, and it is there in every situation we encounter to provide that loss aversion. And that's why risk feels scary, right? Whether we're encountering it like out there in the world or at our business, right? Like in a new strategy, in an uncertain economic climate, or something else that is unexpected, unknown. And so we spend a lot of time asking this question and not a lot of time asking the opposite question. What if the strategy you're thinking about trying that feels really scary is actually the thing that might lead to success? And I mean, let's be clear, some really weird approaches are sometimes successful in marketing, and some really straightforward ones. So I love this example. Josh Nolan of Carpet Repair Guys. He is the type of guy that does not ask what could go wrong, but asks what if things go right. And really, he has taken about the most straightforward approach imaginable to marketing this business. So I don't know if anyone on this call has seen this trend of oddly satisfying. It's a subreddit, it's a hashtag. You know, go ahead and look it up on a social media platform of your choice. But he saw that trend too. And he created these reels on TikTok that is really just of their core service offering, right? Like fixing carpets. There is a hole in this carpet on the left. Afterwards, he has fixed it. He shows you how he fixes it. And in fact, it is oddly satisfying to see carpet that has been shredded by a cat or has like a really nasty spill on it be made new again. And the results of this, I think, are pretty shocking. He has 800,000 followers and 2 million likes on his videos just from showing him fixing carpet. I mean, it's incredible. So there are a lot of marketers out there that are conquering their fear, and very few small to medium-sized businesses are not testing and experimenting. 9% said that they didn't test a new channel or campaign in the last year. So really small numbers out there, but we were still curious on what was holding back these would-be risk takers. So in terms of reasons, the top one was actually social media algorithms, not being sure that they would be able to be successful or catch on because of social media algorithms. Expectations not being realistic, low staff bandwidth, reasons like that are holding folks back. So for businesses that aren't taking risks, there is risk, of course, from competitors. There's risk that they're going to lose customers and revenue. And there's also the risk that they might lose marketing talent to more innovative companies. I feel like this is something that is not necessarily talked about a lot, but our survey found that 69% have considered leaving their job for one with more creative freedom, which I found a little staggering, but also believable. So instead of worrying about getting left behind, I think focusing on proving ROI of new channels is where we need to be, because at the end of the day, competitive risk can be motivating, right? But you have to be on the channel because you're seeing engagement there, not necessarily because a competitor is there or we're afraid that a competitor could be there in the future. All right, moving on, new versus proven. Speaking of channels, speaking of risk, many times the question of safely trying something is coming up in the context of channels. So let's take a deep dive into how our experimenting marketers are thinking about that. So starting out with this, I feel like it is particularly revealing. This is the percentage that our marketers are spending on channels. So you can see here, paid search, paid social win the day when it comes to those small businesses and their marketing spend. But also some surprises. I don't know that I would have picked sponsored content and influencer marketing to be quite as high. And they're all getting more investment than more traditional channels like radio, newspaper, podcast is interesting. I know someone said podcast in their answer. All right. Businesses are also hiring to support expansion to new channels. So in addition to testing new channels, 75% of small to medium-sized businesses are hiring or are planning to hire for more marketing roles to accommodate this experimentation. And you can see here how that's breaking down between types of SMB marketing roles. The biggest barrier to risk-taking is leadership being hesitant to invest more money into marketing. When we looked specifically at new channels, they seem to be a problem, right? Marketers said that it is hard to get buy-in from leadership on potential new channels. But on the whole, 85% of marketers said that testing new media channels is a worthwhile financial investment. So keep this number in your head again. 85% said, yes, it is worth it. 15% said not worth it. We got really curious about that 15%. Why are they saying that it's not worth it? Here's why they're holding back. So the majority said that they'd rather put more money into more proven campaigns. Marketing budget is not big enough, detrimental to the company's revenue, things like that. All right. So quick success story on new versus proven channels. So 3 Men Movers is a moving company that had started using Yelp and specifically Yelp ads. So their ad campaigns were reporting a really high click-through rate to their website, but no conversions were ever attached to those click-through rates. So at the time, 3 Men Movers was like, okay, like maybe it's good for generating awareness, but we're not actually getting any business out of it. So it just sort of seemed like a lost cause at the outset. They started doing a little bit more advanced call tracking, began using some unique call tracking numbers, and they actually realized that those calls from the Yelp ads were being attributed erroneously to organic traffic. So the true conversion rate for the Yelp ads was actually 25%, which turned out to be their top performer. So all these campaigns that they were running through Yelp initially looked like a waste of money. Suddenly they were top performers compared with their more established channels. Okay, last section and most important, if experimentation is helping, how can we foster more of it within our own organizations, within our marketing community? And really, we keep on coming back to this question in this webinar. It's working, right? And I feel like this is kind of a universal experience that many people have had as a marketer, because we all know this feeling, right? You have launched a campaign, there's sort of like the long white knuckle wait for results. And in the meantime, someone will ask, how, like very well-meaningly, someone will ask, how's it going? And it's like just that stomach drop feeling of like, I don't know, like there's just all kinds of fear and uncertainty. And we've all been in a situation like that, right? And if you are in the lucky position where you get that question and you actually have the data to say, well, we are pacing right on schedule, the data is the antidote to that feeling of fear and uncertainty. So the survey that we administered bears this out pretty strongly, that this is the dream scenario for small business marketers to know immediately if their campaign was working, and then they would be able to take more risks. But what we also found is that the majority of marketers do not have a way to prove if something is working that is easy and trusted for them. And further, it is holding them back, because when you don't have data, the only thing you can justify is not taking risks. Let me repeat that. When you don't have data, the only thing that you can justify is not taking more risks. So let's dig into this data real fast. It looks like 55% said that they don't have the data to justify taking risks with emerging trends, 53% new media, and not being able to gauge what's producing results is in fact holding people back. So when we think about how to get there, what tools folks are using, we also asked about that. What kind of tools are you using? And we found that only about half of them are investing in tracking tools. And those of us that are on this call that have those tracking tools, like, that there's really no way to know if your marketing investments are paying off, even on traditional channels, if you don't have these tools. So if we want to be able to track new channels and campaigns, track the ROI as well on all of our campaigns and our channels, we need data to validate our investments, so we are making the best decisions with our marketing budget. Now, what does tracking ROI look like practically? Where does that start? I'm not going to give you the equation for ROI, but I feel like I always get this question when I'm presenting on a webinar or giving a conference talk, of like, where do I even start with this? And as always, with our goals, whether it's revenue, customers, leads, followers, conventional wisdom says, have a goal, right? Make it SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound. A lot of us are like, yeah, got that, check. When it comes to experimenting, though, I think that sometimes we leave out an important component of that, sort of like the follow-on component to the goal, which is a tracking plan. And this does not have to be complicated. Let's look at an example real fast. So this is a good goal, right? It's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time bound. We want 3,000 views, campaign related TikTok reels. The time bound is that September 1st to September 30th. Great. Again, checks all the boxes. But be honest with yourself. You are not just going to be checking results October 1st once this campaign is over, right? You are responsible for shepherding this campaign to success. And others might ask you on September 15th, or let's be more realistic, September 3rd, is it working? It's working, right? And if you don't have the answer, you will have that stomach drop moment. So let's set some expectations with our colleagues, right? Like I said, it does not have to be complex. We have a goal, we have an expectation for pacing, and then we have a reporting cadence and how and when we're going to adjust. So the goal we already talked about, that's in white, right? And then we have the second sentence on the slide, your expectation about how this new thing is going to be received. So a variety of ways it could be received, right? You might expect steady engagement because of the size of your audience and investment level. You might also expect like a slow build of momentum over time. I know that when I'm introducing new offers or events into the marketplace, there's like a splash of some size when I am kicking that off. And then there's like little nibbles throughout the offer period, and then like a last minute rush at the deadline that gives us like a bunch of what we are eventually going to get. So figuring out what you expect that to be based on data that you might have, and putting that expectation up front so that people know. And then you have when you will be checking in or reporting out and how. And if it is just you in your company or in the marketing role, that can be a commitment to yourself. Like, you don't have to send this to everyone. But if you're working in a company with others, if there's other stakeholders or others in the marketing department that are going to be looking at this, they now know that you are on top of it. They can relax because it is in your capable hands, in case they did not know that already. So let's look at another example, because this is very isolated, like one channel approach. But what about something that's like a little bit more down funnel, if we actually want to measure leads from a variety of sources, including some new channels? So this starts to raise a few more complex questions. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that you are a small business and you get about half of your leads from calls, and then another half of your leads are coming from website form submissions. So that raises the question, how do we know where those leads are coming from between those two places where our leads come? How will we track whether those leads were qualified or not? Maybe we have a CRM system, maybe that's an Access document or an Access database or an Excel document. How can we attach the label of like qualified to a lead so that we can then track it? And then how and when can we reallocate spend? So in other words, how do we know what channels are working in this campaign? And then how do we optimize spend on that? And so when we think about what we might need in order to do this, it kind of takes us beyond what we would think about traditionally as marketing attribution, because we want to know the channels that impacted each of these stages that you see on the slide, certainly. But you also need lead intelligence to help you refine your marketing and equip your team to provide exceptional service. So I'll talk through quickly how we do it at CallRail, then we'll get back to our example. But at CallRail, once they are calling a track number or filling out a form, you are going to gain an array of lead intelligence. What searches that lead performed before they called, which ads they clicked on, what pages they visited. And then CallRail can automatically qualify phone leads by transcribing and reviewing calls. what you see on number 2 on that slide, we have a lead attribution report that is going to show you which marketing sources are driving the most qualified leads for your business or your client's business. And then in addition to just how many leads came in, you can also tie that data back to spend right in CallRail, therefore reducing spend on high cost, low lead ad campaigns. So let's say that we have that data backing. We can say with confidence that we can report on these things and that we can make adjustments. So again, following our format of goal, setting expectations, and then the reporting cadence and how we plan to adjust. Again, we have same goal as we had before. That's at the top. Setting expectations for pacing. Let's say that we know based on historical data that December is kind of a dead month for our business. Maybe it's a B2B business, or people just aren't paying attention to this particular product or service in December. So we can say, hey, we're going to expect steady growth against this goal through the end of November. And then we're probably going to have things fall off substantially in December. So this is what we're expecting. We want to get the majority of our leads through the end of November. And then lastly, that reporting cadence. We're going to report out weekly via Slack or our chat tool. We're going to report on that qualified leads number and then plan to adjust. And I even put on this particular example, like the first date that we're going to consider moving up or down. I put 3 weeks out. I think you could also do 2 weeks, just giving yourself enough data to go off of. Okay. And CallRail's customers are doing this every day. OEO is an LED lighting company in Chicago. So they had been using call tracking for about a year, but really only for their online ads, for their PPC campaigns. So they started using call tracking additionally to track traditional media outlets like print advertisements. And what they found really challenged some long-held assumptions within that organization. And now they have saved more than $100,000 by no longer placing advertisements in a channel that they thought was a huge driver, but turned out to not be generating leads. And were able to maximize their ROI. We love to hear it. All right, let's wrap it up. What did we learn today? So number one thing that we learned was that small businesses are taking those risks, and you can too. We also learned that risks are worth the reward. 96% said that experimenting has increased their customers. We also found that not taking risks can be actually pretty risky. In addition, playing it safe isn't as important as staying competitive and feeling confident of success. And lastly, if we could measure results of campaigns, we could take more risks. We would feel confident, because remember, the only thing that you can justify if you don't have the data is not taking a risk. Okay, before we asked, what is one thing that you're thinking about doing for your business that feels a little scary? Now let's sort of complete the circle. What are you going to do? What are you going to do this quarter that might feel a little scary to you? It can be the same thing as you said before. Maybe it's different. Maybe I convinced you with the carpet repair guys to get on TikTok. I want to hear it. What are you going to do?
I'm also excited, if some of these are like older scares or older risks that they took, how did it go? Did it go well for you? So Ozio says enterprise SEO. There you go. So doing something new for the quarter. I could see where that would be scary. That's a big undertaking.
Yeah, I love that.
Let's see.
I convinced no one to get on TikTok.
Manuel says one of the biggest fears is spending money in paid media and not getting the sales or the leads. So not getting that ROI.
Yep.
Michelle says working towards Snapchat, growing TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Oh, Anna, this is a good one. Anna says it's scary not to take the risks.
I love it. I feel like that's a good outcome of this webinar.
I agree. Well, awesome. Well, we'll see if some more come in. We'll grab them as part of our Q&A.
Yeah,
What else
totally.
you got for
Well,
us, Amelia?
yeah, we will get to questions. But while you all are considering them, typing them in, one more plug for this report. Again, if you want to share with colleagues or show the higher ups in your business that yes, in fact, we can take risks, or just reassure yourself. Christina, if you could pop that again into the chat. Thank you.
And it will be in the recap email today. So
yes,
if you didn't snag it.
This will not be your last chance.
That's right. All right, well, cool. Well, we do have some questions. If there are any more, feel free to put them in the Q&A. I see a couple more coming through. So let's see, Amelia. So Nick says, what about starting advertising for the first time? So, new business, just getting started, where do we start? I know you talked about goals, kind of let's talk maybe that next step beyond goals. How do we figure out maybe what are the right platforms for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it does depend a lot on the business that you're in and the space that you're in, for sure. I feel like I would give a completely different answer to a B2B versus a B2C. But I feel like when you're trying a new business, it is a great time to you don't want to fail, but if you're going to fail, fail fast. And so taking what you know about your industry, about where others have been successful, piloting projects, like select 1 or 2 platforms, try to run them in isolation, measure the results. And if you're not seeing what you need to see there, then don't be afraid to pull the plug early.
Great. So Monika is asking, what about as a content writer? Any advice or anything, that might get them, kind of that next job?
Oh, interesting. So in terms of safely taking risks in getting content, I'm just trying to make sure that I understand the question because I'm not staring at it.
Yeah, I think you're taking it the right direction.
Yeah,
as far as having new content to write, having new gigs, freelance perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So sorry, trying to rephrase. So the question is, when you're a content writer, you're looking for these new freelance jobs, how do you safely get outside of your comfort zone and what you're comfortable writing, perhaps? Yeah, that is a good one. And definitely, I was doing a little bit of content writing and like strategy work when I was working with that creative firm for sure. And I always feel like it is hard to break into a new industry because like they have their trusted folks for sure. I mean, honestly, probably something that you're doing already, but like arming yourself with all the knowledge that you can possibly gain about that industry, whether that's through LinkedIn, through attending webinars like this one, if you were trying to break into search engine, writing in a B2B context for search engine marketers, finding those trusted sources within the industry and just knowing a lot about what you're trying to break into, if that makes sense. I hope I answered that question. If I didn't, please send a little follow-up something.
So question we have from Paulo is there a best practice guideline? And this is, again, going to depend on the industry, and what they're in. So is there a best practice guideline for lead qualification window to improve or to pivot current marketing spends?
So I think what you're asking is how you would qualify leads like within a certain period of time before you mark them unqualified and move on. Is that the the general flavor of the question, I think.
I'm kind of reading it like, we're talking about new campaigns. How do they decide if those leads, is there a time frame to decide that leads are qualified, or maybe going, you know what, I don't think this is the best channel for us. Maybe it's time to
Mhm.
pivot.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, that really depends. And especially like when you're looking like within a channel, like what is the ratio of like raw to qualified, like what's acceptable? I mean, some of that is going to depend on, you know, all the different channels that you're running, like what is the best out of all of them. I don't know of any benchmarking work done off the top of my head on like what should you be getting like qualified versus raw from different channels, but that's certainly something that I'm super interested in.
Yeah, I would say, and if you do a great job of setting up your CRM, to kind of qualify or unqualify, and have that by source, that would be a really good way to look at that. So
Yeah, for
let's
sure.
see what other questions that we have. Manika did qualify or quantify that branding, they are looking to brand their
Oh,
freelance
sorry.
writing business to a larger scale.
Yep,
So
sorry, that's my fault. I was clicking around on all the different tabs, and I think that I lost that.
that's
But
good.
okay, so in terms of branding freelance writing, um, a business and not getting scared of reaching out to people myself. Oh, I love that, because that is like, you know, it's almost like applying for the job that you're like 80% qualified for. You know, we're just like, oh, like can I do it? Um, so yeah, I mean, definitely a delicate balance of you know, not wanting to reach out to them when they're like absolutely cold, but also being able to feel like you are reaching out enough in order to grow your business. I will say that like one of the things that I have learned in marketing is that like you think about you more than anyone else thinks about you, and I mean that in the sense of like people are not actively thinking about like, oh, like this person is really bothering me until you are very annoying. So something that like, you know, oh my gosh, like, and even with an ad campaign, it's like, oh my gosh, like we have approached these leads so many times from so many channels, and the person like has only really registered that you've sent them one email ever. And so, you know, don't stalk them, certainly, but also don't be afraid to send an email and a follow-up email. And then if they're not interested, they're not interested, because, you know, it's the chance you don't take, right?
Mhm. I think it's a great way to look at it. And so Emmy did reply in that she will try TikTok, but that it does scare her. So
I
you've
think it
you've
scares all of us.
you've converted one person. Oh yeah, absolutely. All right. Let's see. So if anyone else has any questions, but think I think we might have them all for right now, Amelia. So is there anything else? Definitely tell everybody where to find you. And is there anything else you want to leave everybody with?
Yeah, absolutely. I love to connect with folks on LinkedIn, so please look me up, as well as Daniel Priestley. He's a great person to follow. Follow him all the time. But yeah, I mean, I am so pleased to be asked to be here today, and just hope that you have come away feeling more confident in your marketing, looking at risk and reward in a slightly different way, and remembering that it can be worth it and you just have to try.
Great. And I think you've definitely helped people, because looking through the chat, great stuff. Thanks, Amelia. So definitely, I think you've definitely converted some people into some risk takers. So we'll see. All
Safe
right.
risk, safe risk.
Safe risk. That's right. With that, Amelia, it's always a pleasure having you on here, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Bye.